Hey guys, welcome to the third day of Austere August. Same gear, Nacet blade, chiseled face, midnight stag soap, timeless open comb 68, and stainless steel, Taj handle, Semogue Owners Club boar brush. Brush has been soaking for several minutes in water. I like to get a few more minutes in if I can, so I'm just going to stick it back in for a little bit more time. 353 is today's count for uses on the blade. And here is the Nacet. I got the N up here, the 1 down here, a little Sharpie dot right there to show that it's the same blade. Yesterday I did have to do 4 passes, but I wouldn't be surprised if I occasionally needed to do 5 passes. And I also showed that it really didn't take too much extra time. My passes generally are pretty quick, done it enough to be able to do it fast. Yesterday we loaded for 15 seconds after doing 20 seconds the day before. Why don't we just try 10 today and see what happens? Got my face wet already, so that will help soften up hairs and things like that. I like to start in an objective way because then I can pass the data down to you guys. If I started with a very wet brush or a soaking brush, then that would make the water amount used very dependent on the size of the brush. By shaking out more, it makes it less dependent. Not fully objective, just a little bit less subjective. All right, what are we going to say? We said 10 seconds. Let's try it. 10 is nice because I can start at 23 and just go to 33. Makes it easy. Let's see if it picks up enough soap to do the job. Oh, time flies pretty quickly there. And that's all there is to it. And I'm going to kind of wipe that into the bowl and rinse off just the threading. There's some people who actually rinse out the inside part. And, you know, you do you, but I think that's just wastes soap unnecessarily. And I'm going to set it off to the side to dry as we go on here. I have 40 milliliters of water as usual in my jigger that I will be adding. Hey, you know, just proof of concept here. Why don't we go ahead and add 15 milliliters of water just to start. And you can kind of see all that water in there to some degree. It'll be soupy, of course, and also you learn this lesson kind of quick when adding water to a bowl. Start your stirs, your mixing motions kind of gradually until you build it up to have a little bit of body to it, because it's so easy for the water to splash out. After a little bit of mixing, it's very bubbly and liquidy. I think yesterday was 15 seconds of loading and it was 22 milliliters of water. So if we went with 10 seconds of loading, I'm hoping that, I think the 15 is going to not be as much water as we totally need. I was trying to shoot a little low so that I wouldn't have too much water, and sure enough, look at that. We're still quite bubbly, but that's all right. We're kind of early in the process here. This just to prove the point that, you know, if you ever want to try adding all your water up front, sometimes it works just fine. Some soaps can't take it. Some soaps are, when you add water too early, too quick, they get that kind of wet, bubbly, airy stuff, and they don't lose it. It takes too much time to get them back more toward a creamy lather. and they just kind of stay a bubbly mess. And presto, this is really not far from being ready to go. Some soaps, in general, if you add water slowly, that's usually the safest bet. You know, why don't we just go with that? 10 seconds. How about that? 10 seconds of loading. Plenty of lather, I think. My face, one more douse of water. And we're getting some drippage here. This brush is excellent as a scrubby brush with this kind of motion, or as a painting brush like this. Almost all brushes do well with the painting, even, you know, prickly ones, because you're not changing gears, changing directions right on your face in a way that puts that prickle against your skin. Now, do you see that texture on my face? It's a little drier than what you saw yesterday. Could definitely add more water to this if I wanted to. One way you can tweak it if you don't feel like adding more water, because right now if I added just a couple of drops, okay, let's see. If you can see those craters, almost like I've got pock marks from having zits, that is usually a telltale sign that you can add more water. But if you don't feel like adding more water, one thing you can do is just really saturate your face during the rinse. Don't even dab it dry or shake any off. Just leave a lot of standing water on your face, and that's a nice, easy way to add more water to your lather. Now, if I would have mixed it for longer, I would have noticed that it could use more water, but we're just kind of going to be flexible today. This soap should shave pretty well with this lather that's just a touch too dry. Some people like this kind of dry lather. That's what they head for, and that's just fine. If it makes them happy. Continuing with just a light touch, kind of holding the razor in the middle near the center of gravity so that I can let it lightly move over my skin. And I don't have a mindset here of trying to get all the hairs. Just kind of doing, you can see I am buffing some areas multiple times, but I'm just kind of taking down a certain amount, you know, just take down some hairs. It's kind of my thought here, and not let's try to get as close as we can on the first pass, or as close as we can on as few passes as we can. Just take down some hairs, lather up, do it again. And as you may be able to see, I left my face pretty wet because I know this lather could use that extra moisture. by not trying to do it all in a few passes or do it all in one pass, I think you help to possibly not give yourself as much irritation. Now, I mean, if you want to buff a lot, if you want to do a lot of little movements with your razor, you can, and you could theoretically get it all done in one pass. So, you know, try it if you want. And so now, same thing. I'm kind of going over certain areas again until I kind of feel like I've hit it at the right angle, maybe, is kind of what I'm doing. Who knows? Some of this might just be habit. Second pass done. And look at that, we're only in about the 12-minute mark here on the shave. So see, the bowl lathering doesn't have to be slow. I think most of the time my videos are a little bit longer because I do spend a few minutes making the lather, but also usually have something on my mind that I want to share. Some little bit of shaving technique that I want to try to pass on or something like that. And so that's what makes mine a little bit longer. And now I can tell by the sound that we have been reducing the growth here. And I basically do one pass with the grain for this old Nacet blade here, and then the subsequent passes are mostly cross grain, and then sometimes in certain spots I'll do a variation. I'll come at it cross grain from a different direction, like this right here. And then other times I will, like in this area, cross grain would be this type motion, but I'll do a slant upwards, kind of a diagonal move like that. And sometimes that is a nice way to be a little bit more efficient because it's more of a glancing cut, a slicing type cut. Instead of pushing the blade flatly through the hair, it's having a little bit of transversal movement there, if that's the right word. And I guess we're ready for the fourth pass. Now I suppose some point during the month I could try different methods of shaving since we are using the skin gear each time. That's one thing I like to do in Austere August. This is not really a lather I'm trying to perfect. I'm also not really doing usage tests, although maybe I should weigh the puck just for curiosity, you know, start and end weights. As you can see, this is like the fourth pass, and I've still got 2 or 3 passes in here, so boy, 10 seconds, plenty with the built-up moisture that's in there from the previous two shaves. I could try some face lathering. I've done that in the past. That kind of screws up my usage data though, since I almost always use more product then. I was talking with Greg online, so kind to offer me a little USB microscope or Wi-Fi kind of microscope that he has, and it goes up to about 900 magnification. And that's often enough, at least given the pictures that he showed me as an example, to kind of look at the condition of the blade edge. And that might really tell me something with this Nacet. I've only used it with that etching pointed toward the handle for this whole 453 now shaves. -1, I forgot the alignment on one shave. But hundreds of uses with it oriented one way. And then whenever I just feel like it's not working anymore, at least at a reasonable level, I'm going to flip it over and we'll see what new world that is. If it is anything, will it be worse? Will it be like I have a new blade again? Will it be somewhere in between? We'll just have to see. The one time I used it by accident, it did feel like a much younger blade. It felt sharper, more efficient. How about that? Well, I think that's 4 passes, and just like yesterday, I'm really happy. I think most jobs would be happy with this amount of stubble that's left over, so I think we're continuing to fall within the standard of keeping this blade going, keeping it alive and in use. And by the end of this month, if I keep going with it, it will be a little over 480 shaves. So obviously, I'm going to keep going in September. Pardon me. I'm going to keep going in September. It's late at night. Can you tell? We'll keep going and try to get to 500 in September. Yep, we didn't have to add any more water. 15. I definitely could have added more water. Because the face then carried some residual wetness with it, the subsequent passes were a little slicker than that first pass. Sometimes that's the way it works. And I got plenty. I mean, look at that. There are some people who can make 3 passes out of he would use this much for 3 passes. And so that's just from 10 seconds of loading. Now see, this is the old school kind of lather. It's got a little bit of air to it. It's still got some substance. You can't put too much water into this. It's keeping its shape, kind of high structures, the terminology that I think is fairly appropriate. It's not too heavy. So it doesn't get as creamy when you put this much water into it. Now it's time for the Chiseled Face Midnight Stag Splash. And so Greg, by offering his use of his microscope, did a couple things. Obviously, now I have a microscope that I could borrow and use to look at my blade and see what we find. But also he gave me some good information and showing me the 900 magnification. He let me know, well, that's what 900 does to a blade edge. Now, optimally, I think I might like to have something a little stronger, but those microscopes are more expensive than just $20, $30, or $40 that I found on Amazon. So thanks to Greg, I was able to look up some of those 1,900 magnification microscopes and know that they would probably do something reasonably well in terms of how I want to inspect the blade. Cooling sensation, of course, with that menthol. Nice smell of the Midnight Stag, but I definitely look forward to the intricacies and the extra nice notes of the EDP. So again, I'll show you guys how the brush looks after I rinse it and sling it out. And then this is how it looks after a good towel stropping. And here's what it looks like after, 20 seconds, 30 seconds with a hairdryer, and the hairdryer does have a diffuser attachment. And you can just see how puffy and how the tips are starting to kind of separate now that they're getting more dry. And this is a well-known brush in terms of its big bloom. So we can definitely expect that to keep on going as we age it. There are several different side challenges with Austere August. And one of them is the headless horseman, maybe, headless challenge. And that's with guys who are using straight razors or just single edges, like Kamasori or the Shavette type razors for the whole month. And that sometimes that's good if you want to just learn that type of shaving. Commit to that. Some guys are doing the gem micromatic open comb, which is commonly thought of as a very aggressive razor, but many guys who did that challenge last year learned a good technique, because there are definitely other guys who are displaying and giving good advice and showing good technique as they do it. And guys are learning that it doesn't necessarily have to be as aggressive as its reputation gives. As I'm taking my razor apart here and drying it off, and I'm going to gently, this is the head of course, but I'm much more gentle with the razor blade itself. Let's see, there's another one, neat one that I'm particularly interested in, which is a boar brush challenge. Raw Hogging is the name of that challenge. And there the guys are taking a brand new boar brush, never used. They're not going to use it in any kind of shortcut method of breaking it in. They're just going to use it for a month. And I think it's really cool. I think they'll be able to watch it change. I think we'll have some bored devotees by the time we're done with it. It's kind of a special relationship that happens with the guy and his boar brush, because you do watch it change and develop over time into something that's kind of rough and wastes soap in the first few uses to something that is super soft. I've heard some people call a mature boar brush even softer than Badger's. And I'm interested someday in getting to that point just to see if it works for me in the same way. And so I am going to take my little index card where I keep the original envelope for the blade, and it's just kind of protected in here. So I'm looking forward to watching the guys. Some of them have zeniths, which along with Semogue is one of my favorite. Those are my two favorite boar brush makers. Something I learned recently because of this Raw Hogging challenge is you can actually get with Zenith and order a knot from Zenith without a handle. That's tremendous. I've got several handles that I would love to put a Zenith boar knot in, because some of the Zenith boar handles I just don't find ergonomic, that kind of thing. And so I will probably do that in the future. And so I put my third dot in the little group there. Helps me to keep track of the date, actually. Midnight Stag. Still got a bit of the cooling effect on my face. But now, since we're getting toward the end, I'm going to whip out the EDP. And I'm going to put that on my nice generous spray with this type of sprayer. One is all I need. I like to put it on my wrists. I don't go nose blind to it that way, and I get to smell it until I go to bed, and then sometimes in the next morning as well, because you're moving your hands throughout the day, then the scent kind of comes into your nose and leaves your nose, and so it kind of is a fresh and catches you at different times of the day. And I really enjoy that. And looks like everything's pretty much put up. Yep, it's off to bed. Face feeling good, no irritation at all. There was a little bit of stinging as usual with the splash with a sharper blade. I usually don't get any stinging at all, but this one, you know, is not as sharp as it used to be. All right, well, there we go. Any questions, just leave them in the comments below. As you guys do, I enjoy interacting with you and helping guys out, whether it's just a hello or a serious question. I'm a big member over at a big advocate for the Reddit wet shaving sub over there. If you want more kind of, I'm going to post my shave every day in the big old long thread. There's one called Wicked Edge over in Reddit as well. That one's more filled with guys who like Perazzo and I mean anybody, but they're less concerned with performance and things like that. The wet shaving sub is a little bit more discerning in terms of quality and that sort of thing. So you don't, and then we also have a special daily thread for those shave of the day posts in case you don't feel like having that clog up the main root of the folder. It has daily questions, a daily question thread that's automatically created every day, and the shave of the day as well. If you are curious like me about watching these boar brushes grow, you can look at the other automated thread that is added now that we're in Austere August for the Austere August shave of the days and SOTDs, and you can watch these guys and you can do a search for the raw hogging tag, and you can find those guys who are in this type of cycle where they unboxed on day one, they unboxed their boar brush, they showed it in a video or a photo where it hadn't been used yet. They used it. You can see them kind of complaining that, you know, well, this one had soft tips, but it was really rough, you know, in terms of the backbone, or, you know, or some of them just liked it and they were fine. But then I think toward the end of the month, it'll be really fun to read those same guys in the raw hogging group as they have obviously seen their brush change. And I think that'll be really cool to read up on that. All right. All the best to you. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Love Midnight Stag Month. Thanks to Stephen Joyner of Southern Witchcrafts for being such a fan of this soap that he launched this challenge years ago, and I'm just continuing it because I enjoy it so much too. Take care now. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Bye-bye.